welcome to another episode of The Word for Kids. I'm Jamie, and I'm guiding you through the book of Genesis in a series of 20 episodes. Now we're talking about Jacob. Remember, Jacob was the son of Isaac and Rebekah. He tricked his brother Esau into giving him his birthright, and then tricked his father into giving him Esau's blessing. Afterward, he fled to his uncle Laban's house, where he in turn was tricked, after 7 years of hard work, into marrying Leah when he really wanted to marry Rachel. He worked an extra 7 years to also marry Rachel. Let's find out what happened next. Are you ready for today's adventure? Let's go! So now Jacob had his wives Rachel and Leah. He had many sons and daughters with them, and eventually had to leave the town of their father. Where we pick up the story today, Jacob is an old man and is living in Canaan. Jacob is sometimes called Israel. Now, out of all his children, Israel, remember that's Jacob, loved Joseph most because Joseph was born to him in his old age. Joseph was also his son with his beloved Rachel. Because he loved Joseph so much, he made him an ornate robe. Sometimes it's called the coat of many colors. It doesn't really matter what exactly the robe looked like. The point is just that it was very special, very extravagant, and only given to Joseph. When Joseph was 17 years old, he gave his father a bad report about his brothers. This just means he tattled on them. Now, Joseph's brothers all hated him already because they saw that their father loved him most. They couldn't even say one kind thing to him. Then Joseph had a dream. When he told his brothers about the dream, they hated him even more. In the dream, Joseph and his brothers were binding sheaves. Oh, that sound means it's time for the word of the day.
Sheaf, a bundle of grain, sheaf.
Okay, back to the story. In his dream, Joseph and his brothers were binding sheaves of grain in a field when suddenly Joseph's sheaf stood upright and all the other sheaves bowed down before it. The brothers were angry and asked if he really thought they would bow down to him. Then Joseph had another dream. In it, the sun, moon, and stars bowed down and worshipped him. When he told his family this dream, even his father rebuked or scolded him. "Will your mother and I and your brothers bow down and worship you?" His brothers were jealous, but Jacob, Joseph's father, kept these things in mind. Later, his brothers were grazing their flocks near Shechem. Jacob's father sent him to check on his brothers, but when he arrived, he found they had moved on from there. He found them near another town called Dothan. When his brothers saw him coming, they said, "Here comes that dreamer." Their jealousy and hatred for Joseph caused them to plan to kill him as they saw him approaching. They planned to kill him and throw him in a cistern, which is a large tank for storing water, and then tell his father a ferocious animal had devoured him. When his brother Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue Joseph from his brothers. He said, "Don't shed any blood. Throw him in the cistern, but don't lay a hand on him." Reuben planned to come back and save him later and return him to his father. When Joseph got to them, the brothers removed his robe and threw him in an empty cistern without killing him, as Reuben had urged them. Next, the brothers sat down to eat, but saw a caravan of Ishmaelites going toward Egypt. The brothers saw an opportunity to get rid of their brother and to get some money as well. So they pulled Joseph out of the cistern and sold him to the Midianite merchants among the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. Reuben later returned to the cistern and found that Joseph was not there. The brothers dipped Joseph's special robe in the blood of a goat and returned to their father. They lied and said, "We found this robe. Is this the robe of your son Joseph?" Jacob was overcome with grief, believing his son to be dead. "That is Joseph's robe. He has been devoured by a ferocious animal." Jacob could not be comforted and said he would mourn until the grave, which means he would mourn the death of his son until he also died. He tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his son. Sackcloth was an itchy and uncomfortable piece of clothing people would wear when someone had died. Meanwhile, Joseph arrived in Egypt. The Midianites sold him to Potiphar, who was the captain of the guard and one of Pharaoh's officials. And that's where our story ends for today. Do you know what happens to Joseph and his family next? We'll find out soon. Now it's time for the verse to remember. The verses this week are from Psalm 34, 18 and 19. "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers them from them all." One more time. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers them from them all. This week, your challenge is to draw what you think Joseph's special robe would have looked like. Be creative. No one really knows for sure exactly what his robe looked like. Have fun with it and think about Joseph's story as you design your own special robe. That's all the time we have for this episode. I can't wait to see you again next time for another episode of The Word for Kids.